What's up, guys? It's your man Donovan Sharp coming to you live once again from the West Coast. Just doing a quick video here. The reason I'm doing this is because Joe Mixon was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the second round. He was the 16th pick of the second round, number 48 overall. And of course, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Joe Mixon situation, I'll go ahead and sum it up and then get into what I want to talk about here. Joe Mixon, the video of Joe Mixon knocking out Amelia Molitor, I think it was at a restaurant or something, was made public just a few months ago. It hasn't really been that long. Well, the incident happened back in the summer of 2014. And when the University of Oklahoma, the school that he attended, that he had a football scholarship at, when they found out and saw the video, they suspended Mixon for the entire 2015 season, or for the entire 2015 season. So he came back in 2016, had an outstanding year. I mean, his draft stock rose, of course, because he's one of the best running backs in college football. He was actually a top 5 running back in this year's draft. Well, after the video was made public, the typical public outcry happened. Everyone's calling for his head. Of course, ESPN, being the feminist and feminism ringleader, splashed the video all over the place. People basically wanted Joe Mixon to not play football. They wanted to throw him to the gallows, just like they did with Ray Rice, and any other professional athlete that is accused, or if a video comes out. DeAndre Johnson, I wrote an article about that particular situation. DeAndre Johnson was in the same situation. He hit a female college student. The video, you can actually Google or YouTube that. Just Google DeAndre Johnson video, and the long and the short of that situation is that he was trying to find his place at a bar. A girl gets aggressive with him. She hits him, and he hits her back. Well, he was subsequently dropped from Florida State. That took away his scholarship, and now he had to sit. He sat out a year, I guess, because no school wanted him on their football team. But now he is with Florida. I think it's FIU, which is now coached by Lane Kiffin. It's a smaller school, but at least he'll get to play. But back to the Mixon situation. Joe Mixon played the 2016 college football season, had a great year. During his college bowl game against Alabama, Auburn, the Sugar Bowl, of course, fans are booing, calling him a woman beater, etc. Brent Musburger actually defended. He didn't defend Joe Mixon's actions, but he defended Joe Mixon's right to a second chance, and he was very defiant about that, which prompted an article by Christine Brennan talking about the reason Brent Musburger needs to go, etc. It's all the typical bullshit feminist outrage and hate. Well, as I stated before, Joe Mixon, he's a top 5 running back in this year's NFL draft, and he absolutely should. He was a first rounder. He was a top 10 talent in terms of the running back position, a top 10 talent overall. And nobody really knew if Joe Mixon was going to be drafted. Now, there were some pundits at ESPN that said, hey, look, what he did was reprehensible, but look, his talent, he's such a talented running back. He's such a gifted player, so dynamic on the football field, that there is going to be one team that gives him a chance, that gives him a second chance. There is going to be a team that is going to have them on their football team. Adam Schefter, NFL insider for ESPN, ran an anonymous poll, and of the 32 NFL teams, only 4 of them said that they still had Joe Mixon on their board. In other words, 4 teams out of the 32 considered drafting Joe Mixon. But it only takes one. So obviously the odds were stacked against Mixon. Personally, I thought that he would probably drop all the way down to the 5th or the 6th round. But to my surprise, the Cincinnati Bengals in the second round took Joe Mixon. They decided to go ahead and draft him. They have 2 other running backs there, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill. So one of them will probably go. But be that as it may, the outrage is still very clear. And there was a poignant moment when Mixon was drafted. The moment he was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, the NFL draft is being broadcast everywhere. It's on Fox, it's on ESPN, it's on the NFL Network. Well, As soon as Mixon was drafted, ESPN immediately showed the video of Joe Mixon knocking out Amelia Molitor and breaking 4 bones in her face. And then, of course, there's all the narrative and what are they going to do? Can they handle the PR nightmare? Is their front office equipped to handle what's going to come with Joe Mixon and his presence, et cetera, et cetera? While the NFL Network, when Mixon was drafted, decided not to show the video. All this does is confirms that ESPN is firmly entrenched in the feminist sewage and the SJW, social justice warrior narrative. That was I did a podcast. I actually did a live podcast on I think it was a couple of nights ago. It was on Thursday night, talking about the reason ESPN laid off 100 employees. And there are many, many reasons that happened. But the main reason, nobody can deny that the main reason, or at least those in the know, knows that ESPN for the last half decade has systematically alienated their base audience, which is men. All of their programming is specifically geared toward, again, the feminist narrative. Men are bad, women are good. Men should never hit women. Men should cherish women. Women in sports, and women are better than men. Even their commercials are condescending to men. Men are bad, men are bad, men are bad. It is quite literally a feminist machine. Well, before long, it never takes long. If you're going to alienate your base audience, at some point, it's going to get to critical mass, and men are just not going to watch anymore. That probably didn't happen on Thursday, but I think that was the first of many dominoes to drop in terms of what's going on at ESPN. They laid off 100 people, and a lot of those people, Danny Kanell, Jay Crawford, Jason Stark, Ed Werder, these were ESPN lifers. They had to let these people go. And one of the main reasons I believe that the genesis for these layoffs is the fact that they've made their choice. They have drawn a line in the sand, and they said, we are going to be the far left sports network. We're going to bring politics, and we're going to bring politics into sports. We're going to talk about women's issues, women's rights, women's suffrage, I guess, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they continued, despite having laid off 100 employees 48 hours earlier, they continued to show their feminist bias. As soon as Joe Mixon's drafted, boom, there he is, right there on TV, knocking out Amelia Molitor. And then, of course, there's fan hate on Twitter. The Cincinnati Bengals should be ashamed of themselves. The Bengals aren't going to do shit. I hope Mixon breaks his leg. They're scumbags. Etc. I mean, it's just a typical fake Twitter outrage. But here's the thing. Here's the grand point that I wanted to make with this particular podcast episode. When talking about domestic violence, whether we're talking about Janae Rice, the Ray Rice's now wife, who was knocked out in the elevator, which we all know about, Amelia Molitor, who was knocked out by Joe Mixon, the student that was knocked out or that was hit by DeAndre Johnson, Greg Hardy's accuser, all of these Floyd Mayweather, all of these professional athletes are the highlight of their narrative. ESPN, when they talk about domestic violence and feminist and feminism issues, they never highlight the victim. They want everyone to think that they are just so concerned and so they want everyone to think that they're so concerned about domestic violence and stopping it, yet they don't talk about the victims at all. Their main focus is the athlete. They only want to focus on the Floyd Mayweathers, the Joe Mixons, the DeAndre Johnsons, the Greg Hardys, Dalvin Cook, et cetera, et cetera. That to me just goes to show that they just don't. All they're concerned with doing is punishing men. And that's what feminism is all about. Feminism is one of the main staples of feminism is punishing men, limiting our ability to make a living, reducing our quality of life. And ESPN has found a way to do this. Here we are, these big, rich professional athletes, or soon-to-be rich professional athletes. And as soon as somebody puts his hands on a woman, and by the way, in most of these cases, the woman is the aggressor and the athlete retaliates. more times than not, that is the case. But when they talk about these things, they never talk about, okay, well, how is Janae Rice doing? How is Amelia Molitor doing? No, all they want to talk about is Joe Mixon is the devil. He shouldn't be allowed to play football. I remember back in 2015 when the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao fight was starting to gain was about to happen. The fight happened on May 2nd. Mayweather won at a 12-round decision, as we all expected. But in the weeks leading up to that, ESPN, they were the ringleader trying to get Floyd Mayweather to break his frame. They asked him questions about all of his domestic violence victims. They went to the Nevada State Athletic Commission and asked them, well, why can't you suspend Mayweather? They didn't give a shit about the victims. Nobody even knows what Floyd Mayweather's victims are or what they look like unless you go to the Clark County Register or jump online, because all that's public record. ESPN didn't give a they don't give a shit about the victims. All they're concerned about is punishing men, reducing their quality of life, taking away their agency. Sarah Spain summed it up best, and I caught the end of her interview on Dan Le Batard because of course they were talking about this stuff. She says, look, I don't care what Floyd Mayweather does, I just don't think he should be fighting anymore. Well, the reason she keyed in on that is because she knows he makes his money fighting. This is what feminism and the social justice narrative is all about. And with ESPN choosing to show the video of Joe Mixon and the NFL Network clearly not showing the video, guys, that's all you need to see with regards to which side of the wall they're on. They've drawn the line in the sand. They've dug their feet in the dirt and said, hey, look, yeah, we've laid off 100 employees, but we're going to stay the course. Look, I'm not a businessman. I'm not a ratings expert. My guess is that ESPN will be here long after I am 6 feet under. But they are really going to struggle in the coming years if they continue to push this feminist narrative, the social justice warriors narrative, and continue to alienate their fan base. That concludes this edition of the Sharp Reality Live. Tune in at 2 p.m. Eastern today, where I will be joined by Red Pill Reddit contributor. Actually, he is the most upvoted contributor over at Red Pill Reddit, Gay Lube Oil. So he and I are going to be talking about interracial marriage or interracial dating. He's a white guy, and he actually had a black girlfriend in college for 3 years. And of course, I was on with O'Shea Duke Jackson talking about interracial dating and why I don't date black women anymore. We will also be talking about how to run your woman. We're not going to be giving you guys advice on. We're not going to be talking about relationships. We are going to be talking about, hey, this is how you control your woman. This is how you protect your woman from herself. This is how you run your woman. Take control, be a control freak, etc. Thanks for listening, guys. Hit me anytime on Twitter at Donovan_Sharp. Visit thesharpreality.com or donovansharp.com to listen to all podcast episodes in the archive. And I will talk to you guys in a few hours.